This is Days of Night. Book 6 in the A Day in the Life series. Written, narrated and engineered by Andrew Masseuse. Cover artwork and theme music by Chris Era. Join in the fight to survive. Prologue. The choice. It is in your moments of decision that your destiny is shaped. Tony Robbins. 3 days from now. Michael sat cold and weary. Water dripped elsewhere in the dark room. His teeth chattered. His skin bristled. He tucked his hands under his armpits, trying to rub a ghost of warmth back. He hadn't eaten in days, and he couldn't remember his last swallow of water. A sharp squeak pierced the quiet. Inside the room, or outside? His head jerked from side to side, trying to track the sound in the gloom. He pressed his back against the wall, terrified of whatever predator was moving in the dark. After everything he had survived over the last few years, fear was his default setting. Every animal, vermin, and insect was a threat. He spat onto the cold concrete. There was hardly any saliva to give, but it was a calculated act. A pathetic show of defiance to prove to whatever was lurking in the dark that he was still alive, still capable of a fight, even if he knew it was a lie. Something eerily light crawled up his arm. Instinct took over. He slammed his left forearm against the wall. The creature hit the concrete hard, but Michael caught a glimpse of it scurrying right back towards him. He stomped downward, crushing it instantly beneath his left boot. A heavier noise echoed from outside the door. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs. So soon, he thought. Have the hours moved that quickly? Is my time up? He scrambled backward, trying to wedge himself into the farthest corner, praying the shadows would somehow shield him from whatever horror waited on the other side of that locked door. He hugged his knees, shivering violently in the freezing chamber. The door flew open. A massive silhouette charged into the cell. Michael forced himself up, trying to use his remaining strength to duck and weave, but his knees buckled and he crashed meekly onto the floor. Hands grabbed him. His arms were brutally wrenched behind his back and bound. Duct tape slapped across his mouth, followed by a tight cloth tie. The attacker lifted him in one effortless heave, carrying him towards the exit. Michael's feet shuffled in the air like he was flying. A harsh, fluorescent glare slapped him in the face as they broke into the next room, blinding him. Before his eyes could adjust, a coarse fabric hood fell over his head, plunging him back into darkness. Shoved from behind, he stumbled, his weak legs failing to keep his balance every few steps. "Stand up and walk," a powerful, gruff voice barked. Berserker. Michael recognised the tone instantly. He was Kurt's enforcer, the monster leading the fanatics at this army base. Michael had travelled here on foot with Dr. Stanley, Father Roberts, Samuel, and Argel in a desperate search for his wife. Now, he was the only one left. He just wanted to see her one last time, to look into her eyes and know, once and for all, if she remembered him, if she still loved him, if she was still Teresa. The cold concrete beneath his boots gave way to a sudden splashing wetness. They were outside. Berserkers shoved him hard, throwing him to the ground. Michael's face slammed into a puddle, his cheek scraping against raw asphalt. He lay in the mud, shivering as the freezing rain pelted his back. He wondered how it had come to this. How he had lost everyone only to end up starving and broken in a puddle. Even the looming shadow of death couldn't compete with the chill in his soul. "Remove the blindfold, Berserker," a familiar voice commanded over the downpour. "Let Michael see what he has done." Tiberius. Hatred flared like a hot iron in Michael's chest. He strained his eyes against the dark fabric before it was even removed. Rough hands hauled him backward, propping his torso against a heavy wooden post. He was bound tightly to it. A heavy weight pressed on his shoulders, forcing him to his knees, and the hood was ripped away. Rain instantly ran in freezing veins down his face. His hands trembled uncontrollably. He spotted Tiberius first. The man stood with his chin tilted towards the dark night, his sightless eyes staring blankly at a starless sky. A smug grin twisted his lips as he tapped his cane rhythmically between his feet. Behind him stood Kurt, wearing his usual unreadable hardened gaze. To Tiberius's left, half swallowed by the shadows, sat Jellybean. She was casually twisting a Rubik's Cube in her hands, her eyes locked onto Michael's. Michael glared back, his hatred burning hotter with every ragged breath he took. The raw fury twisting his stomach was fresh, bleeding, and agonizingly recent. It had only been hours since she had intercepted him and Father Roberts out in the dense, claustrophobic overgrowth. Only hours since the trap had snapped shut, and Michael was the only one left. "Hello, Michael," Tiberius said, his grin widening into something devilish. "You have travelled a long way. I knew you would come. It was meant to be." Rain dripped into Michael's eyes, but he refused to blink. "We must thank you for bringing Argel home again." Michael's eyes widened as a bruising, skulking figure stepped out from behind Kurt. Argel tried to shield himself from Michael's gaze, retreating farther into the background. His left arm hung in a sling and heavy bandages wrapped around his torso. "And of course, for bringing the good doctor to us." Tiberius took a step forward, tapping his cane. "Without him, I don't think Argel would have survived. And of course for bringing the good doctor to us." Kurt flicked a lighter, the flame illuminating his stoic face as he lit a cigarette. He glanced behind him. Michael followed his line of sight, and his breath caught. His heart sank like lead. Dr. Stanley stood sheepishly in the shadows. The moment their eyes met, the doctor darted his gaze to the floor. A single tear tracked through the rain on Stanley's cheek. You see, Michael, there was only really one answer. A simple one. Survival. Tiberius turned back to the doctor and grinned. The good doctor understands this. Michael shook his head in silent horror, his own tears mixing with the rain on his face. Stanley took a step backward, abandoning him. Michael's head dropped, his eyes staring helplessly at the wet concrete. His soul felt exactly like his body, completely exhausted, empty and worn out. I would offer you a choice as well, Michael. Kurt wanted me to. You see, Kurt is a fine man of justice. Tiberius stepped closer, his cane clicking against the ground. Michael didn't look up. After seeing Stanley, the last of his fight had evaporated. But Michael, I had a much better idea. Tiberius glanced back at Jellybean. Where is she? Jellybean peered into the darkness behind her. I don't know. No, wait, here she comes. Ah, good. Tiberius turned back to Michael. You see, Barbarella, or Teresa as you know her, has been a little lost. She has been stuck between two worlds. Michael's head snapped up. Tiberius's blank eyes were aimed directly at him. She has been thinking of you, while also, well... Teresa stepped into the light, taking her place next to Tiberius. The moment she saw Michael, the colour drained from her face. Michael! Her hands flew to her cheeks. She lunged forward. But Tiberius raised a hand, cutting her off. Barbarella, you have been lost, my child. You must make a choice. A choice? Teresa stared at Michael. Michael strained against his ropes, pulling with everything he had left, trying to tear through the bindings. He thrashed against the duct tape, but it held tight, muffling his screams into hollow grunts. Tiberius gripped his shoulder firmly. A choice, yes. Kurt has deemed it so. Kurt? Teresa looked towards the large man. Kurt inhaled deeply, the cherry of his cigarette glowing bright in the rain. He offered her a cold grin. Yes, Kurt. Tiberius held her fast, his head turning towards a figure strapped to an identical post beside Michael. You see, Barbarella, your man here has been trying to kill me. Who? Tony? Teresa threw a guilty, panicked look at Michael as the name left her lips. Yes, Tony. And we can't have that. It disturbs things, upsets the harmony of our operation. Tiberius tilted his head, listening to Teresa's ragged breathing. But you tried to kill him! She blurted out. Oh, please, Barbarella, show me more respect. You know, I only have your best interests at heart. This is why both Kurt and I agree. Tiberius signalled to Berserker. The giant stepped forward and ripped the hood off the man beside Michael. It was Tony. His mouth was bound and taped just like Michael's. His eyes were wide, his pupils pinpointed with sheer terror as he strained against his wooden beam. Tony! Teresa screamed. She tried to bolt, but Berserker intercepted her, grabbing her arms and dragging her back beside Kurt, despite her violent protests. Michael slowly turned his head to the right. Tony felt the movement and met his gaze. For the first time, the two men looked into each other's eyes, a raw, mutual hatred passing between them. Tiberius stepped between them, breaking the eye contact. "We can't have this, Barbarella. Kurt has decided it is an inconvenience. An inconvenience, sidetracking our end goal." Tiberius stepped towards Tony, raising his cane. He swung and missed on the first try, but the second strike cracked hard against Tony's skull. "Oops, I'm sorry, Tony. I've enjoyed our talks. I'll admit I'll miss the banter, but I am thinking of Barbarella." Out of nowhere, Elaine sprinted out of the darkness towards Tiberius, popping open a black umbrella and holding it over his head. She wrapped her free arm snugly around his, kissing his cheek before throwing Michael a malicious smirk and flicking him the middle finger. Michael only stared back with numb indifference. They deserved each other. Tiberius patted Elaine's head. "Not now, my love. Please. Daddy's working." "But you're getting wet." "Please, Elaine. It's messing with my macho." Elaine pouted but stepped back, keeping the umbrella extended over him. "Enough talk." Kurt's low, gravelly voice cut through the rain. Tiberius immediately lowered his head and stepped back. "If Tony is to remain, then you must make a choice, Barbarella. Tony or Michael?" Kurt dropped his cigarette and crushed it under his boot. "We've had enough of this shit. Choose, and the loser goes over the lookout." Teresa's eyes darted towards the cliffside to her right. It was a sheer, horrific drop into the abyss. No one could survive it. "What if I choose Michael?" Tiberius waited for Kurt to answer, but the big man remained silent. Tiberius smiled. "Then you can leave with him. I told you, I have your best interests at heart. Just know, you will be considered an enemy." "And if I choose Tony? Why would you let him stay if he did what you said?" "Oh, Barbarella. If it is Tony you want, then Tony you shall have. I'll respect it. He just has to learn his place. But let's just say, I am feeling rather optimistic." Tony thrashed against his beam. A muffled, desperate wail escaped his taped mouth. Michael remained perfectly still, his head hanging low. He knew his time was up. He had survived the collapse of the old world, but he wouldn't survive this. He had come to this base looking for answers, and now he was going to get them. He felt entirely defeated. First Argel, then Stanley, and now Teresa. Hope was a luxury he could no longer afford. Tiberius tapped his cane. The downpour seemed to redouble its fury, hammering against the concrete. "Make a choice, Barbarella," Tiberius said, raising his hands commandingly to the heavy skies with a wide, knowing grin. "Put us all out of our misery. Quickly!" Elaine was still trying to cover his wet head with the umbrella. Teresa stood frozen in the pouring rain, her eyes darting frantically between both men.